I thought I'd start with a very quick overview of, what are some of the challenges we see from our work with projects on the ground in terms of actually getting projects financed and getting shovels in the ground. The biggest challenge we currently see is green demand. So basically, for potential off-takers of green volumes, it can be quite tricky when there's a lack of certainty, basically, of what the future is going to look like. They're quite hesitant to be the first ones to lock in, while at the same time, obviously, to get projects financed, banks often look for these offtake contracts. So we see that that is a big struggle, can be a big struggle. Second is some of the policies that were designed decades ago aren't always suitable for the world we're in today. And we do see that sometimes in our work, policies need to be changed in order for projects to get off the ground. You just mentioned AI, Iana. There's obviously some competition for clean electrons and for other clean energy sources, and access to grids can be a bit of a bottleneck. Finance, especially in some regions, rates are just really, really high. So that can be a bit of a challenge as well. It can really make or break a business case. And then finally, some challenges are more on the technological side as well, where, for example, parts of the technology are in place, but also some parts of the technology, especially in regions which haven't developed these technologies themselves, can be difficult to access. So those are some of the challenges that developers face every day. But at the same time, we do actually see a lot of positive momentum, and we've seen a lot of positive momentum in the past year, which we're very excited about. So one of the things that I work on at MPP is our global project tracker. And what we do is well, hopefully, we sometimes miss a couple, but for every single commercial scale clean industry plant, we basically track those projects. We currently have more than 1,000 in our pipeline across the globe. We track projects that have been announced, credibly announced, by the way, I should say, that have reached FID and that are operational. And we update this data every 6 months or so, and then we provide an insights report as well to explain what's going on. And I've brought to you guys today some of the insights that we published at COP in November, to just give you very, very quickly, because I know we only have limited time, a bit of an overview of what we see going on. So first of all, like we said, there's more than 1,000 clean industrial plants in development. I should say there's actually way more plants than this, even at commercial scale, but we're quite strict with what we include in this overview. So what we call critical decarbonisation projects are projects that decarbonize the production process by more than 70 to 80%, dependent on the sector. There's a lot of like part-way decarb efforts or on-top decarb or recycling going on as well, which we also track, but we track them separately. So this is like the really like the big projects. Out of those projects, 144 have already reached financial investment decision or even already operational. And if you look at the remaining pipeline of announced projects, that's a 1.8 trillion investment opportunity up for grabs, which is really exciting. And again, these are all credible projects that, have set, they know who they're partnering with, they know the technology they're going to use, they have like a plan in terms of milestones, etc. If we dive a little bit deeper into the individual sectors, what you see here is basically the capacity in the pipeline in each sector. But because obviously all these sectors are very different, we've also compared this against like the total volumes that are used of these products today. And what you can see by the size of the bubbles here is that basically fuels and chemicals are going quite a bit faster than the materials. And this is because there have been mandates, or at least anticipated mandates. We'll obviously have to see how the IMO plays out, and we've seen with developers that plays a really big role in unlocking projects. So you can clearly see that there's been quite a bit of pull there. There is less progress in cement, steel, aluminum, and also high-value chemicals. However, when I just said that we also track broader progress, actually the broader progress in those sectors is relatively large. So, for example, in cement, besides like critical decarbonization, CCS, there's also a lot of innovation going on in supplementary cementitious materials, and in aluminum. Obviously, decarbonizing the electricity is the critical lever, but there's a lot of add-on work going on in alumina production, and also, for example, in the residual aluminum smelter emissions. By the way, aluminum is a bit of a different one. It actually looks like it's doing quite well, but most of this is legacy plants, so that's why we still count it as having made slightly less progress. Then if we dive into what's happening geographically, we can see very, very clearly that China is really surging ahead. They have by far the most unlocked projects, so projects past FID. So out of the 144 projects that are past that point, 54 are in China, significantly more than in Europe and in the US. And actually, in the past 2 years, more than 60% of new financed or operational projects have been in China globally. So that's like, you can see they're really investing and treating this as a strategic opportunity for the future. Another thing to point out is at the beginning of 2025, we coined the term New Industrial Sunbelt. Not everyone in this call might be familiar with that, but it's basically regions spanning from South America, Latin America, to Africa, to the Middle East, to Asia Pacific, which are obviously very, very diverse, but they are similar in the fact that they have really, really good renewables potential, and they are also disproportionately exposed to climate impacts. And this group of nations basically has the biggest potential pipeline that's ready to be unlocked. So there's really cool economic opportunities and strategic independence opportunities for those regions. And then after that, Europe has a really big pipeline as well. And then the US is the next biggest after that. And you can see here, for example, within the New Industrial Sunbelt, the biggest the countries leading the pack are Australia, India, and Brazil. They're doing the most in terms of project pipeline. And then in terms of the recent progress, so last year we saw 19 projects reach FID. It doesn't sound like a lot, but it's actually up from like really, really low numbers. We do really see a bit of acceleration going on, mainly driven by China, like I just said. The thing to notice here is that China is obviously leading that as well. Like I said, more than 60%. And you see the really big share of methanol within these projects, which is really interesting. China has seen an unprecedented renewables build out. They did 360 gigawatts in 2024 and more than 200 gigawatts in the first half of 2025. And I don't think all the data is in yet for all of 2025, but it's astounding, and it's at quite competitive costs. And then obviously green hydrogen and derivatives are a really attractive way to monetize that, especially in regions where they have really abundant renewable energy and some grid curtailment challenges. And given that China is already the largest methanol producer and consumer, it's a really logical product for them to invest in. And they've been making some policy changes to basically get clean methanol production up. And you can see that after methanol, if you look at the sectors, most FIDs were in aviation and ammonia, which is, again, consistent with the fact that chemicals and fuels are moving a bit faster. But you can see that on the materials side, there were actually 4 FIDs. So there's at least some progress going on. And I think I'll leave it there